As Spain deals with record-setting summers and a south coast that is starting to look more like Miami, Galicia is stepping in as the #1 contender to become Spain's most enjoyable region. Cooler summers, lush green landscapes, and enough cheese and wine to make your heart and liver nervous about your next visit? Let's get right into it. The Rio de Arousa Bay is the largest on this list and the best spot to illustrate the key features that make Galicia amazing. This huge bay is littered with islands and turquoise beaches that are all interlinked by day trip ferries and an amazing highway system that includes one of Spain's longest bridges. Unlike some coasts that are long and fairly straight, the coast of Galicia has a tremendous amount of depth, and when you add all of that up, this coastline totals over 2,555 kilometers, about the same distance as London to Istanbul. This is why having your own vehicle is borderline mandatory to make the most of Galicia. What sets the bay apart is the sheer amount of variety, making it a place where you could easily stay for an entire week and see and do something different every single day. The added bonus is that the main part of the Camino de Santiago does not pass through this bay, so even during peak season, it really doesn't feel that busy. In the southeast of Galicia, the village of Allariz sits right at the edge of the region just before things start to look a little less green. In the 1980s, this village was resurrected from a forgotten ghost town into an award-winning restoration. It's far to be the fanciest village in Galicia and lacks any big-name tourism draw, and that is exactly what makes it so good. Surrounded by dense trees and running water, it is well worth the stop, especially for travelers who prefer a medieval river dip over a crowded beach or must-see tourist trap. Allariz sits just 25 kilometers away from the Minho River, where you can hit up the legendary thermal baths 100% for free, although the day we went, we opted for the river swim, as a thermal bath when it's 40 degrees outside is just simply bad math. To make it easy for you guys, we put together a custom Google map that you can find in the description below so you don't miss any of these awesome spots. Another water feature you gotta check out is the Ézaro waterfall on the Costa da Morte. This is the only waterfall in all of Spain that connects directly to the Atlantic Ocean, and only one of a handful in all of Europe that does so. I normally suggest getting to places as early as possible, but this waterfall doesn't see the sun until the end of mid-morning, which means it can get a tad busy during high season. However, the busiest time to come here is by far at night, since coming to see the light show is one of the main summer attractions on the Costa da Morte. A pit stop that only takes about 20 to 30 minutes to explore, but it's a fantastic excuse to check out this coast that is littered with beaches and small towns around every corner, and we got much more from this coast later on in the video. Of the 5 official pueblos más bonitos de España in Galicia, I'm calling it a tie in between Mondoñedo and Ponte Maceira. Famous for a cathedral whose massive facade completely dwarfs the quiet medieval streets below, Mondoñedo is tucked into the rolling northern valleys of Galicia. Seeing it from above shows exactly why we love Galicia so much, because while everywhere else in Spain turns yellow during the summer, here it stays deep green, and in the winter, thanks to the vast eucalyptus forest, it's still just as green. Having visited 47 of the official Pueblos Más Bonitos de España, Ponte Maceira is by far the smallest we've seen. This pocket-sized village is centered around an iconic 13th century bridge, which is part of the original Camino de Santiago that extends all the way to the coast. If you want culture, history, and great restaurants, hit Mondoñedo. For pure nature and picnic paradise, you gotta check out Ponte Maceira. I always recommend adding at least one Pueblos Más Bonito to your Spain itinerary, and you can find the full list of all 126 in the description below. One of 2 beaches on this list, the Praia Boca do Rio is as close to postcard perfect as you could ask for. It's one of the reasons you clicked on this video, and it is easily my favorite beach in Galicia. The best section is by far where the huge granite boulders break through the crystal clear waters, creating arguably the most photogenic place on the beach. I highly recommend hitting this place up just before high tide if you can, because this is when the high side of the beach is at its best and the currents are at their lowest. There are very strong rip currents on falling tide, yet there are lifeguards here, so just stick to the designated swimming areas so you don't become another statistic. I am biased to this place, not just because they have an epic free camping spot in the forest just behind the beach, but because they haven't developed this stretch of coastline, keeping it as natural as possible. Because can you really say that a place feels like paradise when it's drowning in resorts and shops selling magnets like this? Strangely not a member of the Association of Pueblos Más Bonitos de España, Combarro is the most beautiful of the Hórreos villages of western Galicia. This village has over 60 raised stone granaries that sit just at the edge of the water that make loading grain onto the boats much easier at high tide. It's a super unique feature that is found all over the coast, but nowhere are the streets and the granaries more eye-catching than in Combarro. If you want to go all in on the best seafood meal of your trip, this is hands down the best place to do it. The fishing port village is surrounded by vineyards where wood-fired grills rule the kitchen, giving you the best choices in local wine and giving you way better options than standard greasy fried seafood. We even saw dolphins in the bay just meters away from the shore, so to say that Combarro has everything you could ever ask for in a village is spot on the money. Galicia is famous for the Santiago de Compostela, yet the Fragas do Eume Natural Park, one of Europe's best preserved Atlantic rainforests, is the #1 hike I'm going to recommend. Trails are everywhere in Galicia, but this one is by far the most unique, sheltering ancient yew trees and over 20 species of rare fern that have survived here since the last ice age. This is a 16-kilometer loop that follows both sides of the river up to the historic Cavareo Monastery, which provides lots of shade, picnic areas, and crystal clear waters you can swim in. It couldn't be farther than the stereotypical sun-baked sections of the Camino de Santiago, and that's exactly what I like so much about it. I might get a bit of heat for this one, but of the 3 main cities in Galicia, I've gotta go with A Coruña as my nomination as the best. Vigo is a beautiful city, but the industrial port cramps up the coastline. Santiago de Compostela was great when my grandpa came here, however today it's an oversaturated tourism mess because of the hiking trail. And then you've got A Coruña that doesn't have either of these issues and is just as nice as the other two. Beaches and summer swim spots are scattered all around town, the port is safely behind the urban core, and everything is compact, walkable, and catches both the sunrise and sunset because of how the peninsula curves. It's home to the oldest working Roman lighthouse anywhere on Earth, and because it's about as far to the northwest as you can go in Spain, it often sits comfortably in the low 20s during summer when the rest of the country is baking at 35 degrees. We even lucked out to be here to celebrate Argentina losing the World Cup, which got A Coruña a few extra bonus points. At number 2, I'm throwing down 2, which are the 2 best coastal viewpoints in the region. At Cap Ortegal, you are standing on some of the oldest rocks on the planet, pushing 500 million years in age. This viewpoint is centered around a classic lighthouse, surrounded by roaming mountain goats that overlook the impressive fang-shaped rocks that pierce through the Atlantic Ocean. And then there is the Cabo Fisterra, which is the OG end of the Camino de Santiago. Sunsets up here are as late as 10:19 p.m. during summer, and there is arguably nowhere better to see them than here. Top it off with a free camping area and more turquoise beaches of the Costa de Morte just a few kilometers away, it's well worth the detour to come to the viewpoint nicknamed the end of the world. Does it get busy? Absolutely. But it doesn't really matter because regardless of its popularity, you do not want to miss the Playa de las Catedrales. Because there is no other beach quite like this anywhere else in Spain. The main draw are the arches and caves that litter this small strip of coastline, which makes it much more than just an Instagrammer's wet dream. But there is a catch. It can only be visited 2 hours before and 2 hours after low tide, and you need to reserve online in advance even though it's free to visit. You're not going to make that mistake because you're subscribed to Planet Lens, but way too many people find out the hard way. Depending on what time of day the low tide is and the time of year, it is going to dictate whether it looks like this or like this. So make sure you check the tide charts before heading there, which you can find in the description below. Although Galicia is amazing year-round, it was the superhero lifesaver of our summer because getting caught in the south at 44 degrees is something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Easily one of the top 3 regions in Spain, but when it comes to summer, you cannot do any better than this.